Thank you for joining us this week, and welcome to
Bourbon. Boom, 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 boom. Welcome back to Bourbon.
This close to a copyright strike.
Yeah.
Actually, that's an old enough song. It might not be.
I don't know. I know that like Happy Birthday, that's a thing for like.
That's actually, I have a shirt about that. I'm gonna wear that at some point.
Yeah.
I have a Mickey Mouse shirt that says "Fixed Copyright."
Oh, dude,
Because
I love that.
he hit public domain. I'm a big fan of the EFF. Totally different topic.
We could put Steamboat Willie up behind us. I mean, now that he's in the public domain.
Yep.
I also I love public domain stuff. I do T-shirts and stuff like that, as you know, and so I often will take like Edgar Allan Poe, Robert Louis Stevenson, and start like incorporating stuff because public domain rocks.
Yep. Agreed.
Sweet. All right, let's talk about whiskey stuff.
Yeah, we're here for whiskey, guys. Sorry about that.
Now, copyright gets us back into all the other things. So,
This is how we started. We like to talk. We just happen to also like whiskey.
yeah, we're friends in real life. So I am so flippin' excited about this episode.
Yep.
Like I've been talking about this episode off the show for weeks now, and it's one that I'm really, really excited about today.
I've seen like the bare spots forming in your beard from the well, actually. There's so much well, actually to this.
So I mean, it's pretty fun. So okay, we're going to talk about the American Revolution. And we're going to do that because we're talking about where bourbon comes from. We're talking about the history of bourbon. We're talking about like whiskey history. We've talked about Elijah Craig and the first charred oak barrels. We've talked about James Crowe and doing sour mash. We've talked about a bunch of things. And then we're going to be getting into prohibition and some follow-up episodes and some other stuff. So in between that, we've got to talk about the American Revolution.
Yep.
Because
and more importantly, taxes.
Taxes. The only thing that's for sure in life is death and taxes. Right?
Yeah.
American Revolution quote.
Yeah.
All right. So, the American Revolution. Let's take it a few steps back. We've talked multiple times about how whiskey in America comes from a lot of Irish and Scottish settlers coming over, making whiskey. I've talked about it before, like whiskey was so prevalent, the making of it, in like early America that like it was literally almost used as currency where they would like barter, they would trade.
Well, it was used as currency on boats, if nothing else. It was used as part of your, like the rum was used as part of your pay.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You were allotted an amount of rum, and that's of course where Navy strength comes from. Is because they would check to make sure the captain wasn't watering down the rum by making sure it lit on fire.
Requirements to count as pay.
Yeah, exactly. So those Scot and Irish settlers, like probably the area that they were most successful in their whiskey making was in the Kentucky area.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Kentucky, like whiskey trade and whiskey barter was really, really, really common. It was a very common thing in that area. Now, American Revolution happens. We all go to war and we fight the British and, land of the free. Give me liberty, give me death. The whole thing, right?
Yeah, give me liberty, give me death, give me bourbon was the original quote, right?
Was that the quote?
Sure. Sounds like it was.
Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes are bloodshot from whiskey drinking.
Yeah.
That's definitely how that went.
Yep.
So, okay. We've got the revolution. Revolution is fought about taxes. Now, at least that's what everybody says. Free themselves from the taxes of the British. No taxation without representation. Boston Tea Party, the whole thing, right?
Yep.
Okay, so
don't listen to those people over there. Listen to me instead. Give me your taxes.
Yeah. Well, sort of. So revolution finishes, and new government is created. If you've seen the play Hamilton, they go into that and how America was formed after that with the Federalists and all that. So how does a new country that part of their revolution was based on not being taxed without representation start instituting taxes on people? Because you have to tax people to have a government. It's like the government has to have money from somewhere in order to do things. So after the Revolutionary War, Alexander Hamilton, again, of the fame of the musical.
I'm pretty sure he was famous from some other point.
Well, I mean, he was a founding father, I suppose. I think his name's on the Declaration of Independence. He wrote a whole bunch of the Federalist Papers and many other things.
Yeah. He just wrote the play in his spare time.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to actually.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it.
Anyway.
All right. So Alexander Hamilton,
Yep.
among many things that he did, he created the National Treasury. He created Wall Street. Like finance was a major aspect of some of the stuff that he did in the American Revolution. And post-revolution, he recognized that America had a whole bunch of debts that they needed to pay off. So he was like, what we're going to do? We are going to tax their whiskey. Now, originally, George Washington was not in favor of this. He was staunchly opposed to the whiskey tax. In fact, in 1791, Hamilton got it passed through Congress, the whiskey excise tax, even against Washington's disapproval. And it went into effect, taxing whiskey makers to help pay off post-war debt.
Okay.
The problem was the taxation wasn't equal. It unfairly put heavier burdens on small distilleries and small makers. So when you talk about
Which is nothing at all like the current American dream.
No, nothing.
Yep.
Nothing at all.
Yep.
But also keep in mind, like we were saying, in Kentucky, everybody's making whiskey.
Yep.
So most of them are small makers. Like, we're not talking about giant plants at this time very often. Like, there were some, but it was a whole thing.
Right.
So lots of people fighting back, not being willing to do this, especially with all of the post-revolutionary no taxation without representation stuff going on. And 175 different people were arrested and convicted for not following Hamilton's whiskey excise tax.
Okay. Well, I mean, to be fair, they were represented.
They were.
Sort of.
Sort of. I mean, they had their representation. We had Congress, we had the Senate, we had the House of Representatives and all that. And this is the new American government.
Yeah.
But
Growing pains.
we did just fight a revolution over, hey, we don't like their taxes. So it was a significant issue in the early part of the country. And so eventually this turns into violent protests.
Yep.
Like it becomes becomes actual violence.
People who love alcohol got violent. That's weird.
True. Yeah. Crazy. So it escalated and escalated and escalated until eventually George Washington himself, George Washington.
Yep.
He gathered up 12,000 people into a militia and rode them straight over to a distillery in western Pennsylvania, and he put down the Whisky Rebellion, as it's been known and called.
Okay.
And this was a major moment in American history because it proved that the American government had the right to enforce taxes through violence, through force.
Okay.
And without that, we might be living in a country that didn't have any taxes, had very, very limited government. So it was a very, very important part of the American Revolution and the post-American, like the post-revolution American creation.
Okay.
Now, here's where I start getting nerdy.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so this distillery in western Pennsylvania is currently known as Michter's Distillery.
Okay.
Now, that's only since about the 1980s. The way most people know this distillery is as Baumburgers.
Okay.
Baumburgers Distillery in western Pennsylvania is the distillery that George Washington marched to with 12,000 militiamen in order to put down the Whisky Rebellion.
Okay.
And I cannot think of a better way to honor that than to drink some.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
So we're really lucky. We actually have, as noted before, a good friend with a pretty great collection.
Yeah.
And a lot of good connections. So we were able to get our hands on Baumburgers.
Yes.
Baumburgers?
Baumburgers.
Is it Baumburgers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like
I'm going
Bob's
to
Burgers,
say
but
that
better.
very confidently without actually knowing.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, you are my source, so I'm going to go ahead and trust you and cite you. Hey.
Sweet. If I'm wrong, tell us in the comments.
Yep. Politely. So Kentucky Straight Bourbon. Bourbon is super duper bolded. It's great. Small batch, 108 proof, 54% alcohol by volume, 750 milliliters. Bottle 1023 of 1783. All right. Batch 21E1 349. Okay, I guess they use hex numbers. Cool. Yeah.
So you said 1,700 bottles.
There's 1,783 bottles.
So that's about six
About six barrels, yeah.
Yeah.
At 108 proof, yeah, probably 6-ish barrels.
Yeah.
5 to 7.
Yeah, I'd say 5 to 7.
So 6 being the,
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to taste this. So this is an allocated whiskey. It is difficult to get a hold of. We really got a hold of it because we have a very good friend. She's a rock star who allowed us to borrow this bottle and have a taste from it.
Technically, the full name is Baumberger's Declaration.
Yes. In fact, this is from what I was reading, this is a whiskey that is specifically there as a tribute to what we're talking about today.
Yep.
Not the Whisky Rebellion, but the Revolutionary War and all that.
It's a pretty deep color.
Yeah. You know what it doesn't say on the bottle? No, it doesn't say no caramel coloring.
Oh, that's true. Though half of it is in cursive, and I was a product of the current public education system, so it's a little slow for me to read it. But let me give it here.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's try. Let's start here.
Let's do this now
Because I can read better after I drink. Bottled by Michter's Distillery LLC, Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
All right.
Which, by the way, that's the current place of Michter's. Michter's is currently in Louisville.
Yeah, I've been there. I walked in and it smelled funny, and they told us it was their sour mash. Like, all right, like, do you keep it in the front lobby? Like, what's going on? And then they also told us they were closed and not seating anybody else, even though the door was open, and they had 5 people at the reception. So we left.
I mean, that sounds like fun.
Mm.
God, the nose on that is so good.
That is an incredibly rich. Ooh. Oh, what is that? I can't place that spice, but it's like a weird holiday spice.
Mm-hmm.
Like a weird candy you get at like Christmas.
Yeah.
I can't place what it is though.
For me, it's like okay, so cloves.
Uh-huh.
In the apple cider, in
The
like
cigarettes?
no, not the cigarette. Like when you get holiday cider, old holiday cider, they would put clove pits in the cider bowl.
Yeah.
And then you would just, if you drank it, you spit it out or something like that.
Like
and
mulled wine and stuff you're talking about. Yeah.
similar to. But for me, when I grew up, it was apple cider.
Yeah.
Oh God, that is so good.
So wait a minute. I want to clarify something.
Mm-hmm.
Baumberger's Declaration Bourbon honors the legacy of the former distillery known as Baumberger's in the 1800s,
Mm-hmm.
and later as Michter's in the 20th century.
Yep.
Please join us in toasting and celebrating American whiskey history.
Yep.
You said the 1800s.
Yes. It became Michter's in
say-
1975. It became Baumberger in 1861.
But didn't you say that the Whisky Rebellion you were just talking about was in 1791?
Yeah. You know what most people don't know? So, most people will attribute the distillery in the Whisky Rebellion to the Baumberger's distillery because that's what it is. And in fact, if you go back to Western Pennsylvania and you look at the distillery, the historical site, it was the original distillery founded by the Schenck brothers.
Oh, weird. You mean these guys? This right here?
Yes, it was Schenck's distillery.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Now,
All right.
Schenck's Distillery was founded in 1753. It became the Baumberger Distillery in 1861.
Oh.
So, at the time of the Whisky Rebellion, it was in fact not the Baumberger's Distillery. I mean, I think. I mean,
Most of your sources said that, though.
Of course, according to my sources. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But it was in fact the Schenck's Distillery, started by the Schenck brothers.
Who helped you connect those dots?
That would be you, sir!
I'm learning.
Man, I got to tell you, when we started talking about that, I got so excited.
Yep.
Because, like, this goes even deeper than that, right?
Yeah.
So, what's the best thing about Schenck's Distillery in this particular context?
That they make bourbon.
They do make bourbon, but also George Washington, who led 12,000 people to the Schenck's Distillery to put down a whiskey rebellion, stopped and bought Schenck's whiskey for his troops on the way to Valley Forge.
Wait for it. He didn't just buy their whiskey. he also bought their surplus crops, didn't he, to feed his
Yes,
troops?
he did.
Yeah, so
Gotta love it when it comes full circle. Like, oh, it's so good, man. So we've got Bomburgers.
yep.
And I'm not gonna lie, this is fantastic. And it is the Bomburgers Declaration, and it's talking about Bomburgers as the oldest distillery in the country, which is what they call it because the Shanks Distillery started in 1753, well over 20 years before the American Revolution.
Yep.
And then the Shanks
Yeah,
here,
they're like they were here before it was a country. They don't count.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
You remember how earlier I made the comment about this episode is full of the well actually? That is the most well actually thing. You know, yeah, you realize you're here first. But we didn't have this piece of paper, so you don't count.
That's right. You don't actually count as the oldest because we weren't a country yet, and
Yep.
that's what we're going to measure this by.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
That is pretty freaking hilarious.
Yeah. So originally when we were planning this episode, we were going to drink Michter's. And then we had our very good friend who we connected with, and she was able to lend us the Bomburgers.
Yep.
And we were like, yes, it was the Bomburger distillery they were at. This is fabulous.
Well, then, like, I remember I had gotten, this was one of my very first calls for an allocated list.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. What do I get? And you and I were both like, I think, I don't know. I think this, maybe that, I don't know. And I remember you had a reason for suggesting the Shanks over the Bomburgers because I was originally going to get the Bomburgers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wound up doing the Shanks. So I literally just so happened to have it.
Yeah.
Which we were saving for a future episode of, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then we're like, wait, just a minute.
Yeah, so when we start talking about really, really early distilleries, like the ones we've been talking about, as we head towards Prohibition, we start getting into some of the distilleries that were given licenses to continue making during Prohibition, like Stitzel-Weller and Brown-Forman and American Medicinal Spirits and such.
Glenmore.
Yeah, in Glenmore. And so that's where this was coming from as I was thinking about Bomburgers as a part of that.
Yeah.
And then as we were researching this episode even further, we found out that this not only was the original name of the Michter's and Bomburgers distillery, but that it has those ties to George Washington, both for feeding the troops and, of course, for getting them drunk.
Yep. Which, is pretty critical, actually. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's see. Kentucky Sour Mash Whiskey, Shanks Homestead. Small batch, 91.2 proof. 45.6 alcohol by volume, 750 milliliters.
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky whiskey, 2024 release. Small batch Kentucky sour mash whiskey, just again, but in cursive for some reason. Michter's Distillery, Louisville, Kentucky. Bottle 1272 out of 2701.
That's...
You want to do the math on that again?
All right, so 2701 is going to be 9 barrels?
Nope.
About 350 barrels a piece. It's going to be
200 and some odd bottles a barrel.
200, not 300?
Depending on the strength, I guess.
Oh, I suppose that's true. What was the proof?
91 proof. So proof. That's almost 300 bottles.
Yeah.
So that'd be, yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah, I would round to 10 just for safe.
Okay. Yeah, about 9 to 10 barrels.
Yeah.
So I mean,
batch. Like they're using hexadecimal again. 24E2246.
And that makes sense. A lot of that comes from how they. A lot of that is the paperwork and how they track it in the actual distillery. Mm-hmm. For us, like as the consumer, generally, it's we're interested in the Shanks Homestead 2024 edition.
Right. Okay. So this is Shanks Homestead Sour Mash Whiskey. Honors the legacy of American whiskey figure John Shank,
mm-hmm.
Who in 1756 founded a distillery that was to become known as Michter's in the 20th century. Please join us in toasting and celebrating American whiskey history.
Ooh, that actually, I might have just got actually by the bottle. I thought it was 1753 that the distillery got founded.
Yeah, that's what I said. Who in 1753.
Oh, you said 1756, and I was like,
wait,
no.
Sorry. I think I stumbled across to, wandering across the label. 1753, you're right.
Oh.
You were right.
So I'm actuallying you.
Yep. Well, no, the label, I just read poorly. Remember earlier I said American.
Well, actually, not 1756, 1753.
Remember I
Thank
said
you.
public education.
Oh, that's one of the best lines in a movie ever is, "You're exactly what we've come to expect from years of public education."
I've cracked the label. Ready?
Do it.
Ready? Does it sound like the American Revolution?
Shot heard round the world was the start of the revolution. I gotta stop.
Here's a little story I gotta tell.
Oh, yes. No, before we taste this, I'm gonna hand over real quick here, and I'm gonna hold in the bottle. Before we taste this, I do want to do a call out to our listeners and to our viewers. This is a very special episode of Bottle Bond. We don't generally have this level of whiskey, you don't need this level of whiskey to be able to enjoy whiskey.
No.
These are allocated bottles that we were very lucky to be able to get a hold of for this episode, specifically because of our topic matter.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's very important to both of us is that whiskey is approachable. You don't have to get an allocated bottle to enjoy it, but we're very, very happy and lucky to have these.
Somebody I respect a lot once told me whiskey is for everyone.
Damn right. That was me.
Yeah. But it's true, right? Like I mean, most of the stuff we've actually had so far to date on the show, the average bottle price is under $50.
Yep.
And I mean, some of them are like even cheaper, like half that, right?
Absolutely.
Just clack it. Bourbon clack number 75. Oh.
Oh my God.
I'll admit I like it. It smells really good, but it also has like a weird smell on it, like almost like a uric acid smell almost.
Interesting. I get pumpkin.
But like that was just one shot of it. I wonder if it's just like fresh off the nose. Walnuts?
See, that's more what I'm getting. Yeah, I'm getting pumpkin pie, walnuts, Thanksgiving dinner, the pastries at a Thanksgiving buffet. I'm wondering if the uric acid you're getting is a little bit of the evaporating ethanol.
Because I think it must be because it went away the second smell.
So another really cool thing about this whole thing in the Whisky Rebellion, right? Okay, so Washington rides out to Shanks Distillery. He's got 12,000 militia following. I don't have my flippin' mic in front of me.
For flipping.
Okay, there we go. I'm gonna try this again.
Yeah, all right. Don't worry. I can carry the conversation literally by myself.
You can.
No, I can't.
So, another really cool thing about this, right, is that, all right, Washington rides out to Shanks Distillery. 12,000 militia behind him to put down the Whisky Rebellion. He clearly recognizes, I bought these guys whiskey before. It's delicious. And him and the militia, they put it down. Well, you still have to do something, right? Like, people were upset. So Thomas Jefferson was the governor of Kentucky at the time. And him and Washington came up with an idea where the distillers were kind of encouraged to move to Kentucky because it was a really good area for growing corn and growing the stuff you need for bourbon.
Yep.
So they incentivized them with land rights. And a whole bunch of these distillers from the Whisky Rebellion moved down to Kentucky into what later became known as Bourbon County.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So this seems like a good homework thing for me.
Yeah.
To figure out the timeline. Because, like, we've talked about this and then also had a lot of alcohol with it.
Yeah.
So remembering what dates went where in history makes sense. But, like, which of these things was the, like, chicken and egg, right? Like, did they move to Kentucky because it was good to grow crops that could be fermented, which then triggered essentially the creation of bourbon?
Yeah. So.
Or, because, like...
Yeah.
Well, because like Elijah Craig was when?
Yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head. But.
Homework.
Yes, exactly. This is the thing that I want to know now. And so here's your homework.
Yeah.
I want you to find out if Elijah Craig and if James Crowe, two of the founding fathers of bourbon.
Yep.
I want to know if they were at the Whiskey Rebellion.
Because I super failed that pop quiz.
Yeah, no worries. Like, I want to know, were they at the Whiskey Rebellion? Were the Shanks at the Whiskey Rebellion? Are there?
Well, I mean, clearly they were because it was at their house. So like,
that's a very good point.
yeah. These guys. I mean, especially what was his name, John Shank.
John Shank.
Yeah, John Shank.
It was John Shank and his brother.
Not on the label, Shank.
Not Michael. Michael was one of the name of Michter's. The guy who founded Michter's, he named it after his two kids. He just shoved their names together. I can't remember John's brother though.
Okay, so you have the and Michter's.
Yep, M-I-C-H is Michael.
What Tur?
Walter, I think, was the other one.
Yeah, okay, I guess it makes sense because I can't. That Tur is like not a. Sounds like the kind of thing where you're like, I don't know, I'm confused.
Yeah, no, I think his other kid was Walter, if I remember right.
All right.
Something like that. But yeah, so I would love that. If you can do some homework and find out, was James Crow, was Elijah Craig at the Whiskey Rebellion, or do the timelines line up enough that it's entirely possible?
Yeah.
Because like we talked about, like, bourbon isn't named bourbon necessarily because it was made in Bourbon County. The people from Bourbon County certainly want you to think that.
Right.
But Bourbon County was named after some stuff in France. Like, that's where the name for Bourbon County came from.
Right.
So originally, the idea that I find more appealing or more realistic is that things were shipped out with whiskey that was labeled as having come from Bourbon County and so then became known as bourbon.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the lineage of stuff is literally like, well, how is it labeled? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Even like if you take a look back at like Old English and stuff like that, it's a really, really common thing there as well.
Yeah.
In fact, yeah, there's some really cool stuff with like Old English where some of the words work together and the way you get into some of the word etymologies there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even at the beginning of this, right, literacy was largely for like rich landowners still at this point in time. So like the ability to read bourbon on a barrel meant you could point at the thing and be like, I want that. Right. So,
yeah. Yeah, you were absolutely correct. That's true. In fact, there were a whole lot of like very, very specific things. I mean, the owning of land was an original requirement for voting in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Yep.
But that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we are celebrating the Whiskey Rebellion.
I mean, we're not
Maybe we're not celebrating.
it.
It's taxes? Like, I don't think, that didn't work out. Maybe today we're drinking to the Whiskey Rebellion. No. Today we're drinking good whiskey.
We're observing. Today we're observing the results of the Whiskey Rebellion and showing appreciation for progressing beyond it.
Maybe. No, because then like we got taxes out of it though. Today we're drinking.
Today we're drinking. Oh wait, no, I drank.
To you.
To me. To you.
To me. To the bond.
To the bond.
To the bond.